This is the second in our series on prayer, and all the points begin with P, and this message is titled The Principles of Prayer. By principles we mean ingredients. If you see a cooking program on television, the person presenting the program tells you that you will need so many ounces of this and so many milliliters of that and a pinch of something else. If you start to tinker with the recipe, the end product will be affected. If you miss something out or put more of something else in, then what you get at the end will not be what the original recipe intended. And it's like that with our prayer life. Although prayer should be spontaneous and from the heart, nevertheless there are certain ingredients that we can bring into our prayer life to make it effective before God. The first ingredient that we bring is thanksgiving. Psalm 100 and verse 4 tells us, enter his gates with thanksgiving. I think it's important to be thankful and grateful to God for all that he's done for us. Very often you hear people say, particularly when they've done something for someone and the person hasn't said thank you in return, you hear that person say how ungrateful that other person is. And in the same way, if we aren't thanking God for all the great things that he's done for us, then we too are just as ungrateful as those people that other folks don't have much time for. We should be grateful to God for all the wonderful things that he's done in our lives. Things that we know about, that we can see, that we can demonstrate, as it were, in our lives. But also those things that are unseen, where the hidden hand of God has been at work, protecting us, blessing us, guiding us and leading us. So it's important to be thankful. And I think it's good to start our prayers with thanksgiving, because it sets the tone for everything that will come afterwards. Secondly, it's important, I believe, to have praise in our prayer. Psalm 100 verse 4 also goes on to say, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. I think it is important to thank God for what he's done for us, but it's also equally important, and perhaps more so, to thank him for who he is. Not just for what he's done, but for who he is. When we consider the majesty of God, when we consider the heavens and the earth, the creation, even looking up into the sky at night, seeing all those stars on a clear night, and knowing that God has put everything in its place. What a wonderful God he is. And yet he still has time for each and every one of us. We need to thank God not just for what he's done for us, but for who he is. Praise him. And even if we praised him for the rest of our lives, we would still not be able to give him the true honour and glory that's due his name. But I believe our prayer should consist of praise. That we're thanking him, yes, but also we're praising him as well. Thirdly, we need petition in our prayer. Thanksgiving, praise and petition. I think we should avoid a shopping list mentality with a whole list of things that we come before God with. Do this, do that, do something else. That's wrong, because it shows in a way that we're just using God, particularly if that's how we start our prayer. We're not thanking him, we're not praising him, we're not grateful for what he's done for us. We just want more. It's important that we don't see God as some rich benefactor who's there to answer every prayer that we bring before him in terms of our needs and our wants and the things that suit us. But nevertheless, God does want us to come before him with prayer. There are things that we can do for ourselves, and that is the responsibility that each and every one of us has. But also there comes a time in our life, in a certain situation or circumstance, when we can't do any more than we are. And that's when we need the intervention of God. That's when we need a miracle. That's when we need God to break in to that situation. And that's when we petition God in prayer. We come before him and we ask him to meet that need, intervene in that situation, break into that circumstance. We petition him in our prayer life. James 5:13, is any one of you in trouble? He should pray. If we are in trouble, if we do need that intervention from God, then we come before him in prayer. And not just for ourselves as well, but for those around us. Perhaps we know people, family, friends, acquaintances that need that miracle from God, that need that intervention from God. It's our prayer life that we come before him in and bring those requests before God. So thanksgiving, praise and petition. There are many other ingredients that we could add into that equation, of course. That's not by any means an exhaustive list. But it's a simple, not formula, because prayer is not a formula, it should always come from the heart, but it's a simple guideline that we come before God with. And as we do so, then we will be effective. We will avoid those selfish shopping list prayers, particularly when we start with thanksgiving. We move on to praise, and then we come to our petitions. Prayer is important. Prayer is our lifeline between us and God. Prayer is relationship. Prayer is communication. And as Christians, we need to develop our prayer life and have more prayer in our lives as we progress in our relationship with God.